Jensen, a factory worker and ex-con, is having a tough time. When the steel mill he works at shuts down, he heads home to his wife Susie and their baby daughter Piper. It's nighttime when he gets home, and after saying hello to Susie, he goes upstairs to check on Piper. What Jensen doesn't know is that a masked man has broken into their house. While Jensen is upstairs, the intruder kills Susie in the kitchen. When Jensen comes back down, the man hits him from behind, knocking him out. Before leaving, the intruder puts the knife in Jensen's hand and makes a mocking hand gesture, framing him for the crime. Jensen wakes up to find the police arresting him for his wife's murder. 6 months later, he's sent to Terminal Island Prison. As soon as he arrives, he's greeted by a guard named Ulrich, who sprays him with cold water and lets another officer hit him. Jensen is then put in a cell with 3 tough inmates ready to attack him. But when Ulrich returns later, expecting to see Jensen beaten up, he's shocked to find that Jensen has already knocked out all 3 of his cellmates. The next morning, Jensen heads to the mess hall for breakfast. He catches the attention of Coach, Gunner, and Lists, who recognize him as a once famous race car driver whose career ended in tragedy. The mood shifts when 2 inmates, Pachenko and his buddy, approach Jensen. They spit in his food and mock him, calling him a wife killer and child abuser. Jensen can't take it and snaps, attacking Pachenko. But before things get out of hand, the guards step in and drag Jensen away to meet Warden Hennessy. In her office, Hennessy reveals she knows all about Jensen's past as a pro driver. She offers him a deal: take on the identity of Frankenstein, the masked racer in Death Race. The real Frankenstein died after his last race, but the public doesn't know this. Hennessy wants to keep his death a secret to maintain the show's ratings. She explains that Frankenstein was a fan favorite, and she needs him to keep the audience engaged. According to the rules, any driver who wins 5 races earns their freedom. Since Frankenstein had already won 4, Jensen only needs 1 more win to be released. Jensen is tempted by the promise of freedom, but hesitates, knowing how dangerous the race is. She threatens him with solitary confinement, leaving Jensen no choice but to agree. Jensen is then taken to the prison's auto shop, where he meets Coach and his team, the mechanics responsible for Frankenstein's car. They explain the rules. Every team works independently, and there's no helping each other. Jensen also notices a large workshop where Hennessy has been building something in secret. Only a few people, including Coach's team and some guards, know Jensen is the new Frankenstein. Hennessy's tight control over the prison ensures her secret stays hidden. Coach introduces Jensen to his car, a heavily modified Mustang packed with offensive and defensive gadgets. However, no ammunition is loaded until race day to prevent escape attempts. Coach emphasizes that escaping is nearly impossible since the prison is on an island. The only exit is a narrow bridge, heavily guarded by police and helicopters at the slightest hint of a breakout. After familiarizing himself with the car, Jensen joins the team in the yard, where Coach explains the race structure. It's divided into 3 stages. The first 2 focus on eliminating as many opponents as possible, while the final stage is all about speed to cross the finish line first. Each driver is paired with a navigator, typically a woman from the nearby women's facility. Lists briefs Jensen on the key racers. There's 14K, a Triad member and MIT graduate, Grimm, a psychopathic fan of Hennessy, Pachenko, the Aryan Brotherhood leader, and Colt, a disgraced ex-NASCAR star. Their talk is interrupted when Joe and his crew confront Jensen, warning him that the race is only between Joe and Frankenstein. As a van returns inmates from a work area, Jensen notices their GPS tracking bracelets, triggering a realization: the man who killed his wife wore one of those bracelets. The day of the first race arrives. Jensen is given Frankenstein's gear, including his clothes, mask, and ring, to fully assume the role. His appearance alone reignites viewer interest. Coach advises Jensen to keep the Frankenstein aura by not talking to the other drivers. However, he can remove the mask while driving, as the tinted glass conceals his identity, and Case already knows the secret. Before the race starts, Jensen asks Case why she's in prison. She reveals she killed her abusive husband, who was a cop. The race kicks off. The first lap sees some aggressive driving, but without weapons activated, the racers mostly try to outmaneuver each other. With Case's guidance, Jensen stays close to Joe, holding his position near the front. Spotting a shortcut, Case directs Jensen, allowing him to take the lead. Once the second lap begins, Hennessy activates the weapons and shields, transforming the race into a battlefield. Drivers must hit specific manholes to arm their vehicles, and the race becomes a deadly game. Hennessy ups the ante by deploying death heads, lethal obstacles scattered across the track. Grimm seizes the chance to eliminate a competitor, shoving them into a trap, and then slows Joe by spraying oil on the track. Grimm's dominance is short-lived though. 14K fires a missile, sending Grimm off the track. As Grimm stumbles out of his wrecked car, Joe mercilessly runs him down. Meanwhile, Jensen struggles as his machine gun malfunctions. Case, showing incredible courage, climbs onto the hood to fix it, drawing fire from other racers. Thanks to Jensen's expert maneuvering, they avoid the worst of it, and Case safely returns to her seat. The battle heats up as Jensen hijacks a defense manhole from Colt. However, his defense systems fail, and bullets quickly shred the rear shield. Thinking quickly, Jensen devises a bold strategy. He instructs Case to detach the napalm canister and sit on his lap. He then ejects her seat with the canister, which crashes onto Colt's car. Case follows up by tossing the lighter, igniting the napalm, and engulfing Colt's vehicle in flames. With Colt out of the race, Jensen faces off against Joe once more. But Jensen is suddenly distracted when Pachenko makes a recognizable gesture, the same one used by his wife's murderer. The shocking realization costs Jensen his focus, allowing Joe to ram his car, pushing him to the back of the pack while Pachenko claims the lead. By the race's end, 3 drivers are eliminated, leaving 6 to compete in the next stage. Back at the garage, Coach and his team examine Jensen's car, but find no faults with the equipment. They're puzzled by the system failures during the race. Frustrated and growing suspicious, Jensen confronts Hennessy. He accuses her of orchestrating the entire setup, framing him for his wife's murder, rigging the race, and using Pachenko to manipulate him into becoming Frankenstein. Hennessy counters with a chilling threat. She shows Jensen a photo of his daughter, now living in foster care, and reminds him that if he wants to see her again, he must continue racing. Unable to challenge Hennessy directly, Jensen returns to the yard and confides in Coach. Later that night, while working on his car, he notices Pachenko and decides to follow him to his team's pit. There, Jensen is ambushed by Pachenko's crew. Pachenko lands a few punches and grabs a heavy tool, intending to crush Jensen's head, despite knowing he's under Hennessy's protection. Before Pachenko can strike, Lists steps in, stabbing him with a pen. Jensen seizes the opportunity, grabbing a metal rod and using it to fight back. He overpowers Pachenko's men, knocking them out before turning his attention to Pachenko. Jensen beats him mercilessly, slamming him into nearby equipment. Just as Jensen is about to finish him off, Pachenko confesses that Hennessy ordered the murder of Jensen's wife and that Ulrich helped him. Guards, including Ulrich, arrive just in time to stop Jensen, pulling him away from Pachenko. The next day, as the second stage of the race approaches, Pachenko taunts Jensen once more, repeating the same hand gesture. Determined to get answers, Jensen drives slowly at the start of the race, steering into a tunnel to have a private conversation with Case. In the tunnel, Jensen confronts Case, accusing her of possibly being involved in the real Frankenstein's death. He points out the suspicious failures of the car's gadgets in back-to-back races. When she hesitates, Jensen threatens to eject her from the car unless she tells the truth. Case, realizing Jensen's seriousness, admits she sabotaged Frank's rear weapons under Hennessy's orders. Lured by the promise of her freedom, she insists Frank's death was an accident caused by his desperate attempt to win without functioning weapons. Hennessy never intended to kill him. Her plan was to ensure Frank lost so she could keep him in prison and exploit his fame. With his suspicions confirmed, Jensen floors it back into the race, ignoring Joe for now and focusing on Pachenko. The two clash repeatedly on the track, each trying to force the other off without success. Jensen then makes a daring move, activating the weapons manhole instead of the defense system. Everyone is puzzled, as Jensen's car's weapons are front-mounted. Moments later, Jensen shocks the crowd by spinning the car around and driving backward, unleashing a barrage of gunfire on Pachenko's vehicle. The damage builds until Jensen releases a smoke screen, causing Pachenko to crash into a concrete barrier. Jensen stops, steps out, and approaches Pachenko. Without hesitation, he snaps Pachenko's neck, finally avenging his wife. Meanwhile, Joe switches out his navigator mid-race. At this moment, Hennessy unveils her secret weapon, the Dreadnought, a massive, heavily armed tanker truck. The Dreadnought tears through the track, swiftly obliterating two minor racers. Its size and firepower are unmatched, allowing it to take shortcuts by smashing through buildings and reappearing at the front of the race. It methodically targets 14K's navigator, using chains to drag his car before shooting it until it explodes. With only Jensen and Joe left, the race seems unwinnable without a clever plan. Jensen quickly asks Lists to connect his communicator to Joe's car, and the two strike a deal to work together. Flanking the Dreadnought, they skillfully evade its relentless attacks. When they come across a trap manhole, both drivers maneuver their cars to activate the trap, causing the Dreadnought to crash into it. With the monstrous truck disabled, the second stage ends, leaving only Jensen and Joe for the final race. Later that evening, Joe approaches Jensen in the pit, commenting on how his voice bears an uncanny resemblance to Frank's. Meanwhile, Hennessy and Ulrich plot to ensure Jensen doesn't survive the final race. The next morning, Ulrich secretly plants a bomb under Jensen's car, while Hennessy distracts everyone with a speech. As she hints at the possibility of someone winning their freedom with a fifth victory, Jensen has a chilling realization. The system is rigged to prevent anyone from ever reaching that milestone. Coach, having overheard Jensen's thoughts, shows him a crucial detail from a video of Grimm's death, sparking an idea. Jensen asks Lists to install a half-gallon reserve tank in his car, and then approaches Joe to propose one last collaboration. As Jensen dons Frank's iconic gear, Hennessy visits him with release papers, offering a deal. If he wins, she wants him to stay on as Frankenstein to continue the show. She suggests that staying in the race would be the ultimate sacrifice for his daughter, implying he can't provide a good life for her outside. Jensen accepts the papers silently, tucking them away. Case 2 reveals that Hennessy has asked her to stop Jensen if he gets too close to winning. Unfazed, Jensen prepares for the race, confident in his plan. As the race begins, Ulrich manipulates the manholes, activating them only for Joe. When Ulrich fires on Jensen, damaging his rear shield, Jensen is forced to drop it. However, Joe, well-versed in Frank's tactics, dodges these attacks with ease. In a bid to keep the audience captivated, Hennessy activates a defense manhole for Jensen, but Joe counters with a rocket, destroying it. Joe continues firing rockets, but Jensen expertly dodges, allowing them to strike a weak spot in the wall, an old vulnerability from Grimm's crash. This was all part of their plan. The rockets finally blast a hole big enough for them to escape. Instead of racing for victory, Jensen and Joe have orchestrated the ultimate rebellion, breaking free from Hennessy's grip and escaping the prison, leaving the rigged system in ruins. In a fit of rage, Hennessy abruptly ends the live stream and orders every cop to hunt down Jensen and Joe. She then activates the bomb under Jensen's car, only to realize her plan has already been foiled. Coach and his crew had removed and deactivated the bomb earlier. With the police closing in, Jensen and Joe speed toward the bridge, ready for the next part of their escape. Jensen releases the half-gallon reserve tank, a crucial piece of the plan, and drops it. The tank crashes into the pursuing police cars, creating a massive explosion that halts any further pursuit. The two convicts race across the bridge, then split onto different routes to confuse the helicopters following them. The helicopters focus on Jensen, deeming him the bigger target. Meanwhile, Case decides to help Jensen with the final part of his plan, feeling indebted to Frank and confident that once it's over, Hennessy will honor the release papers she gave her. As they pass construction cranes, Jensen leaps from the car and hides in the shadows. Case takes the wheel, driving further until the helicopters force her to stop with a wall of fire. When she exits, her hands raised in surrender, she's wearing Frank's clothes and mask. Case has now fully assumed Frankenstein's identity, helping Jensen to escape from Hennessy's control. Confused, everyone watches as Case is arrested and returned to prison while Jensen escapes. He meets up with Joe, and the two board a train, leaving the chaos behind. In the prison offices, Ulrich watches the ratings skyrocket, already receiving congratulatory gifts. As he opens one, it's a box containing the bomb that he had planted under Jensen's car. The bomb detonates, killing both Ulrich and Hennessy in an explosion. Outside, Coach, who activated the detonator, ensures the two corrupt figures are taken down. After some months, Jensen and Joe have settled in Mexico, starting fresh with a new life. They run their own auto shop as mechanics, and Jensen has regained custody of his daughter. Everything seems to fall into place. Soon, they're reunited with Case, who has won a lottery and a new car. She joins them, marking the beginning of their new chapter together.